Interesting race, more interesting finish, and Austin Dillon has found himself in the playoffs and in the heart of the bullseye, hasn't he?
A good way of summing it up. First of all, the race is going to get lost, I feel like, because that was an excellent race between all the different tire strategies, the option tires, the prime Goodyear tires. That's going to get overlooked, unfortunately, because I thought it was a good one. But yeah, the finish, I can't recall one like that recently. Yeah, look, like people are going to say, like Austin Dillon, he had to do, he did what he had to do, but no, he didn't. I mean, he chose to do that, right? Like he didn't. You don't have to do that. It's unfortunate too because up until Ricky Stenhouse and Ryan Preece had their incident coming to the white flag in front of Austin, he was going to straight up legitimately win that race. And that was going to be a huge shocker because he entered the race 32nd in the standings, hadn't won a lap all year. And then, the pit crew performed on pit road. He has an excellent pit crew and got him off first. And then, if you look at Racing Insights, statistically, he's one of the worst restarters this year. So, unfortunately, lost on the restart to Logano, and then all gloves were off on the final lap.
Lewis, what do you think?
Yeah, this is where we are now in NASCAR. You have to win, especially this late in the year. And there's going to be opinions on both sides, but as we were talking earlier, let the referee decide what was right or wrong. But as someone who's been around a year or two, as I was at Talladega when Jeff Gordon beat Dale Jr. under a caution. The fans don't want the race to end under caution, and that's why. But that's where all this comes from. And I agree with Dustin. I mean, the best car all night was Austin Dillon. And you heard Bubba Wallace say, well, something about like the right car won, but I can't shake his hand, Yeah. So it's ironic. I'm the arbiter of ironic on Twitter X. It's ironic that he should have been the winner, but he had to do what he had to do. And now we have this, and I hear families are breaking up over arguing over this.
I will preface this and just kind of note, when we are recording this show, NASCAR has not announced any penalties yet. So we don't know monetarily if anything has been issued, or, if you're hearing this on Thursday, for instance, we don't know if anything has come down yet. So we're going under the assumption that Austin Dillon keeps the win. I don't see any way NASCAR takes away the win at this point in time. Could there be a penalty possibly where maybe he loses the benefit of the win, which puts him in the playoffs? That could be a possibility, Dustin.
A ton of possibilities on what could or should happen. I probably got to speak carefully here, but yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen as we speak here, as we record it. Like you said, NASCAR hasn't announced anything yet, but we haven't seen anything like this recently. We've seen this, honestly, to me, kind of reminds me of the Hal Mellon to a degree. When, at Martinsville, it does, because like Ross Chastain, he needed a few points. Granted, he didn't go for the win, but he picked up 5-6 positions, and that got him into the championship for Phoenix the next week. Austin Dillon had no intention on making turns 3 and 4. He was going to take out Joey Logano, and then he came down, and if you look at the SMT data, it looks like it shows that he took a left on Denny Hamlin. Whether he did or Hamlin came up, who knows? That's for NASCAR to decide. But yeah, this is something that we haven't really seen, at least that I can recall.
There's been a lot of talk so far this week, Lewis. A lot of fans, they don't like Logano. They don't like Hamlin. And those guys have both been aggressive drivers and have moved people out of the way. And they've liked to compare this to Dale Earnhardt Sr., who also, of course, drove the 3 car. But I can't. Hey, I covered Dale Earnhardt Sr. for a long time. You and I have both been around this game a long time.
You're not saying we're old.
Okay, if you want to put it that way, yes, we are. but when he quote unquote rattled Terry Labonte's cage, it was a bump and run. It was move the guy over. But to me, the difference, and Dustin alluded to this, The difference this time is Austin Dillon made no attempt to pass Joey Logano. He was going to go right through him.
Yeah.
That's the difference to me between what people are trying to compare this to with Earnhardt and what other people have done. That to me is where the line, I think, got crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. And but I read that Earnhardt was parked by Bill Gazaway at one point for aggressive driving. But yes, classically in NASCAR, bump and run. You hit him square on the back, move him up the track a little. Don't wreck him. Don't put him in the wall, and take the lead. But as you said, this was and Dustin read all the tracings and that he went for it. And you know, I don't know what his spotter may have said or didn't say. We have some controversy, or not. There are recordings which I have not heard. So the good attorney in me said, I don't know exactly what was said. I heard what was said. And with all the pressure, wherever you are, a race driver, you know, again, in the old days, a steering wheel, a trophy. This is what you had to do. Perhaps it's time to change the rules.
Well, and I think that's what NASCAR faces at this point, Dustin, is and you guys both talked about this at the top. This is what NASCAR's created with the win and you're in playoff system, which I think we all love, but you've given people a green light until you draw a broad line. You've given people a green light to do whatever it takes to win a race, right?
Yeah, and we've seen, you know, maybe not for the win per se, but we've seen other drivers do desperate moves, kind of like this. And every instance is different, so it's not really fair to compare them. But like, you know, in the inaugural version of this format in 2014, Ryan Newman at Phoenix, which was then the penultimate race to get into the championship four, he moved Kyle Larson right out of the way. You know, he kind of drove hard into what is now turn 1, turn 3 back then. Moved him out of the way to get into the championship four because he needed a point. We've seen this happen not often, but like this to me kind of reminds me of, you know, I said the Hal Mellon, but it almost reminds me of like Matt Kenseth and Joey Logano at Martinsville, a totally different scenario.
Different.
But yeah, as far as the format, I mean, we love this format. I think most people love the format. It's taken some people, some fans, some hardcore, you know, fans, time to adjust to it, but we get the Game 7 moments all the time. But with that, it comes with an instance like this where drivers are racing, you know, for their careers too, and a win goes a long way.
I can't imagine the pressure that Austin, you know, was under. Like I said, he had the car, but why is it we get these wacky results from Richmond, the itchy elbow, and Martin Truex was completely collateral damage that year. He eventually went on to a championship, but why is it Richmond? It's not. It used to be the cutoff race, you know, and I had been there, wasn't there this weekend, but is there like a full moon at this track or something?
It might be. It's interesting, but it's going to be interesting to see what the fallout is from this down the road. If NASCAR intends to broaden that line, you know, Elton Sawyer talked about it Sunday night after the race. Yeah, did it go over the line? It certainly went very close to the line. So does NASCAR have to broaden that line and make it clear? And, you know, they talk a lot about it, Dustin. They have to determine intent. And that becomes a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, the data's all there, right? More than ever. There's tons of data out there for NASCAR, for whoever to see, and inform their own opinions and judgment calls, and, you know, go from there. But from the outside looking in, and I think, you know, mostly everybody can agree on this, it wasn't a good look for Austin Dillon. And two, like, you know, I think this is another topic of conversation. Maybe you guys can allude to it, but like, how many drivers in the Cup Series do you think would do that? Like, if they were in the same instance, I really don't think many would. So, I mean, he laid it all out there. You can't deny that. And like Lewis said, the pressure of Austin Dillon, you know, he's kind of in a way, the face of RCR. Eventually, he's probably going to run the team, and he'll live and die for that team.
Yeah. I mean, don't forget, you said the number 3 and his pop-up is there watching. I don't know. Could he go back, back home to welcome where the team is and say, well, the only way I could have won was wrecking him. I don't think Richard would have been happy. Would be happy with that. I had moments of wondering about that. Again, it's where we are now, and it's time to look at these rules. And Denny was collateral damage. It was. I hate to say it was almost comical because I don't think Austin intended to hook him. I don't think it really was in control at that point.
Yeah.
Maybe Dustin, you've seen tracings, but
the SMT, because it was on, it was public, but
yeah.
and it does look like there's a pretty big switch in the wheel to the left. So now, granted, Austin has and will continue to deny that or say that he had to come down the track because he was all the way up the track because he had so much force into the corner because he dumped Logano. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a tough call regardless because like I said multiple times now, we haven't seen anything like this.